I've said to people about your why, it needs to be tangible. It needs to be something you can really grab onto, because it gets you through the tough time. When you're got a video to edit, or you've got a post to make, or you've got, a client that maybe is not as wonderful, or somebody at your workplace that it's a difficult conversation you're going to have. If you're doing the meaning part and you're reminding yourself, why am I doing this to begin with? Why is this important to me to begin with?
Yeah.
It's so much better. And that's personal meaning. There's also meaning in general, that us as humans, we all want to be happy. We all want to have prosperous lives. We all want to make a difference, so we have these things all in common. Plus, a lot of people, and there's a lot of research related to believing in things larger than ourselves, that those people are happier, that believe in things. And I don't like to get into religion, because, it's not necessarily about religion, spirituality, just knowing that there's something larger than yourself. That's so important. And what I love about this framework is everything floats back on itself. So like, meaning informs your optimism. Optimism informs your relationships. Relationships then informs your engagement. When you're engaged, it's more meaningful for you. If you have better relationships, you're more optimistic. So everything kind of goes back on itself. And what I like about it too is people like things to be simplified for them. Everything is so complicated now. We've complicated everything so much. And
yes,
if you have something that, okay, I'm going to invest my time in this. And one, I know it's not hokey, that I just read, no disrespect to People Magazine, but that I just read in a People Magazine article, and that this is actually evidence-based information that I provide in my book. In my book, there's tons of references, so people can dive in a little deeper if they want. But I wanted to keep it simple and little things that you could do every day that would make a difference. And they do make a difference when you do them. I'm living proof. I do these things myself every day. And, so I'm sure there's more things you can add to what we're talking about.
Well, totally, because it's interesting, because what you're basically talking about is being able to understand and query yourself in a positive fashion and in a way that is going to be productive, like with your what went well today, which I've seen that on LinkedIn. So anybody who happens to be on LinkedIn, definitely connect with Jan. We're going to have all of her handles in the show notes, so you'll be able to do that. But when we're talking like change management circles, like for the leaders and people that actually do change management and systems thinking, so where you're actually thinking of the system as a discrete entity, as opposed to an organization and people, it actually all comes together within systems thinking. There's part of that that's called appreciative inquiry. And that's exactly what you're talking about, being able to question and ask, but doing it in a way that is optimistic, that is respectful, that is appreciative of what people are bringing to the table and what went well, not just this constant critique. So right. In a way, you're talking about doing that kind of on the micro level with a person, as right. opposed to on the macro level with an organization. But anything that's going to work on the macro level is going to work on the micro level, which also goes back to like Margaret Wheatley. I don't know how much people out there are going to know necessarily about her book or her idea about quantum leadership and being able to look at things on bigger and small levels as fractals. Right. But the quantum leadership and that what we can do on the micro level, we can do on the macro level. So I appreciate that you're bringing it in at the ground level, because that's where we learn it so that we can then apply it to the larger system.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that I love that you brought that up about these systems, because I've recommended to many, many leaders that I've talked to do that exercise at the end of one of your meetings. Just go around the table and ask, and not everybody has to participate. They don't, it's not a mandatory thing, but when you're on a project and you have to meet with your folks that you're on the project with, why don't you stop at the end and say, well, what went well? The most important part of that is the why, because it's different from a gratitude list. I'm not opposed to gratitude lists, but this research shows that some people can find those to be tedious. And it's the why part, it's the meaning part that is what changes our brain. It's being grateful, but why am I grateful? Because otherwise, if you just go, okay, well, I'm grateful I have a roof over my head. Well, why is that important? You know, I mean, obviously, there's many, many reasons why that simple thing is important. But that's what starts to change the brain. Because as I'm sure you are well aware, we are negative grabbing brains is what we have. We have and this comes from our evolution. You know, it was a protection mechanism. You know, don't go down over there because there's an apex predator, you know, that I could die if I went over there. You know, don't eat that weird colored thing because I could die, you know, from it. So the negativity was important for our survival. Now, I'm not saying that people don't have the opportunity to be chased by an apex predator now. I'm not saying that, because there are places where people do have that. Thankfully, I'm not in necessarily one of those. Not that I have bears here, but they're not. I know. So, you know, attack. But you see what I'm saying. Yeah. But the thing about it is it's related to stress. And, you know, like when you're in a workplace situation, if you have deadlines and you're stressed about those, your body responds the same, whether it's an apex predator chasing you or a, you know, deadline chasing you. But the problem with the deadline chasing you versus the apex predator is the apex at that time, you know, once the danger had passed, when you're talking about going back several years, once the danger had passed, your body goes back to where it's supposed to be. Now that doesn't happen that much, you know, because people stay in that stress mode and become sick. You wind up becoming sick. So, or burning out, or any of these things that you hear a lot of times. So what went well, what's so important about it is checking in with people, and it's not saying that we don't recognize that things go bad, because they did, and we have to address those. But what did go well? Because we need to elevate ourselves and spiral upward from something that went well. When you do that in a meeting and you allow people to feel heard and be part of it, and then you set the tone for the next part of the project. You know, let's end on a positive note as opposed to ending on a negative note. You know, let's try to go, okay, we need to handle this. We need to get that done, but this is what we're doing really well. And let's continue with that. And again, I'm speaking in a generic capacity because it applies to each person differently and each situation differently. Yes. But it's an important thing. And each person I've told that to, and I'm so sad about this, each person I've told that to, I'm like, please let me know if you use it, because I really do want to hear happened if you used it in a meeting. I want to know, because I like do little mini research projects myself of, oh, this person did this. Oh, they did that. It worked. It actually, you know. So any of the listeners out there, if you do it in your meeting, please let me know. I do actually want to hear. So
and there is a business foundation for this. So, I mean, definitely, and do get in contact with Jan. If you want to look at it more on the micro level, definitely check out her book and the M.O.R.E framework. If you're wanting to look at it at a just from a different point of view, the book on inquiry, appreciative inquiry, and that's more in change management circles. So it's kind of a tight circle, but I mean, there is a business premise for using this. So definitely use it and do report back on that, because it does make a difference.